Commander Krax stood 8 feet tall on his hind legs, muscles rippling beneath chitinous armor that had evolved specifically to make lesser species wet themselves in terror. His 4 arms flexed as he surveyed the holographic display of the galaxy, each conquered world glowing a satisfying shade of Vorthak red. At least, he assumed it was satisfying. The Vorthak had conquered so many species that intimidation had become less of an art and more of a corporate policy. "Sir," squeaked Communications Officer Bleth, whose voice had never quite recovered from the day he tried to outroar a Vorthak drill sergeant. "We've detected another primitive world in the Outer Rim, 3rd planet from a yellow star. The inhabitants call it Earth." Krax's mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among his kind. The Vorthak Empire had built its reputation on a simple business model: show up, look terrifying, demand surrender, repeat. It was a formula that had worked for 3,000 years across 400 star systems. The galaxy had learned to fear the distinctive black ships of the Vorthak fleet, each one bristling with enough firepower to crack a moon in half. Primitive how? Krax rumbled, though he already knew the answer. They were always primitive. The galaxy seemed to specialize in producing species that thought pointy sticks and righteous indignation constituted adequate military doctrine. Chemical rockets, sir. Nuclear weapons. They appear to fight among themselves constantly. Bleth's secondary eyes dilated with something resembling pity. Their most advanced spacecraft can barely escape their own gravity well. Intelligence suggests they've been stuck on their homeworld for less than a century of their local time. Krax felt that familiar surge of predatory satisfaction. The Vorthak had earned their place at the apex of galactic civilization through superior evolution, advanced technology, and a cultural commitment to being absolutely terrifying. They were living nightmares crafted by natural selection, with reflexes that could track a plasma bolt in flight and natural armor that could deflect most energy weapons. Standard intimidation protocol, Krax decided, his voice carrying the casual authority of someone who had never encountered meaningful resistance. Deploy the 3rd Fleet. Full terror formation. These humans will surrender before we even enter their atmosphere. He gestured dismissively at the hologram of Earth, a blue-green marble that looked laughably defenseless. Add them to the tribute worlds. Their planet appears to have adequate resources, and their species might prove useful for manual labor, assuming they survive the shock of meeting their new overlords. What Commander Krax didn't know, what the entire Vorthak Empire couldn't possibly have predicted, was that Earth's inhabitants had spent their entire evolutionary history turning everything that tried to kill them into either dinner or a learning experience. Sometimes both. The 3rd Fleet began its jump toward Earth, confident in their role as the galaxy's apex predators. They were about to discover that the food chain had more levels than they'd imagined. The Vorthak 3rd Fleet dropped out of hyperspace with all the subtle grace of a meteor shower, their black warships arranged in the classic "we're here to ruin your day" formation that had terrified civilizations across the galaxy. Krax stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Bone Crusher, waiting for the inevitable flood of panicked transmissions from the planet below. Instead, his communications array lit up with a single casual message: "Hey there, big guy. Coffee's on if you want to chat." Krax stared at the transmission display, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. In 3,000 years of conquest, no species had ever opened diplomatic contact by offering him a hot beverage. Most of them were too busy screaming. "Trace that signal," he barked at Bleth, who was frantically adjusting his equipment. "It's coming from everywhere, sir. The entire planet is broadcasting on the same frequency. They appear to have unified their communications network in the time it took us to drop out of hyperspace." Before Krax could process this information, his view screen flickered to life, revealing the most unnervingly calm face he'd ever encountered. The human, Captain Jake Morrison, according to the subtitle helpfully appearing below his image, was leaning back in what appeared to be a comfortable chair, holding a steaming mug. "So," Jake said, taking a sip of his coffee, "Invasion Fleet, huh? Classic. Love the whole ominous black ships aesthetic you've got going. Very retro, very intimidating. Must work great on planets that actually care about that sort of thing." Krax's mandibles clicked uncertainly. According to standard protocol, this was the part where the primitive species should be begging for mercy or at least asking what the Vorthak wanted. Instead, this human was critiquing their ship design. "I am Commander Krax of the Vorthak Empire," he announced, drawing himself up to his full intimidating height. "Your world will surrender immediately, or face the consequences of defying the galaxy's apex predators." Jake nodded thoughtfully. Right, apex predators. Got it. Quick question though, have you guys ever actually met any apex predators, or do you just tell people you are and hope they don't ask for references? The question hit Krax, like a slap from a confused asteroid. What? It's just that actual apex predators tend to be pretty chill, confident. They don't usually need to announce their status to their food. Jake gestured casually at something off-screen. Emma, come here a sec. You gotta see these guys. A woman in a lab coat appeared on screen, her eyes lighting up with genuine scientific interest. Dr. Emma Rodriguez adjusted her glasses and peered at Krax like he was a particularly fascinating specimen. Oh wow, she breathed. Look at that exoskeleton. And those redundant limb structures. You're like a weaponized arthropod that learned to pilot spacecraft. Absolutely fascinating. Do you mind if I ask about your evolutionary history? The chitinous plating suggests you evolved from scavengers rather than hunters. Krax felt his worldview tilting sideways. He was supposed to be the terrifying conqueror, not the subject of casual scientific observation. We are the most feared species in the galaxy, he protested, though it came out sounding more like a question than a statement. Are you though? Jake asked, genuinely curious. Because from where I'm sitting, you seem more like a really successful pest control company that got too big for its britches. No offense. Communications Officer Bleth leaned over to whisper urgently in Krax's ear. Sir, our psychological warfare specialists are reporting complete system failure. The humans appear to be immune to intimidation. On screen, Jake was pouring himself another cup of coffee. So anyway, what's the plan here? Standard surrender or die routine. Because I gotta tell you, we've tried that approach on each other for thousands of years, and it never really works out the way people expect. Krax decided to cut through the psychological warfare and get straight to the physical kind. Enough talk. Weapons Officer Gorth, demonstrate our firepower. Target their largest population center. Sir, yes sir. Gorth's claws danced over his targeting console, charging primary plasma cannons. These primitives will learn to fear the... His console exploded in a shower of sparks. Sir? Gorth's voice cracked like puberty hitting a war cry. The humans appear to have hacked our targeting system, also our life support, and our gravity generator. Oh, and they've somehow subscribed us to something called cat videos. Jake's voice crackled through the comm system, now apparently broadcasting from every speaker on the ship. Sorry about that, big guy. Your cybersecurity is adorable, by the way. We had our teenagers crack it during lunch break. They were bored. Before Krax could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the fleet. His tactical display lit up like a Christmas tree, if Christmas trees were designed to induce panic attacks in seasoned military commanders. Sir, squeaked Bleth, his voice reaching frequencies that could shatter glass. We're detecting massive energy signatures from the planet's surface. They appear to be targeting us with their star. That's impossible, Krax snarled. No primitive species has stellar manipulation technology. A new voice joined the conversation, gravelly and amused. Who you calling primitive, bug boy? Sergeant Tommy Tank Williams appeared on screen, casually cleaning what appeared to be a weapon cobbled together from spare parts and pure spite. We've been weaponizing everything on this planet since we figured out how to throw rocks. You think we'd stop at the sun? The tactical display showed Earth's orbital stations, which Krax had dismissed as primitive communication satellites, realigning into a formation that looked suspiciously like the galaxy's largest solar lens array. That's not possible, Krax whispered. Those are communication satellites. We're communication satellites, Tank corrected cheerfully. Amazing what you can do with a little creative engineering and a complete disregard for safety regulations. We've been meaning to test this setup anyway. Thanks for volunteering as target practice. Dr. Rodriguez's voice joined the chorus, excited as a kid on Christmas morning. Oh, and Commander Krax, that evolutionary analysis I mentioned? You're not apex predators, you're opportunistic scavengers who got lucky with some decent technology. Real apex predators don't need to travel in fleets of 400 ships to intimidate their prey. 400 ships. Jake's voice carried a note of mock surprise. Is that all? Guys, we might have overestimated these fellows. Krax's blood, or whatever the Vorthak equivalent was, ran cold as his sensor array detected what could only be described as impossible. The humans had somehow turned their planet's magnetic field into a weapon. Their ocean currents were generating directed electromagnetic pulses. Even their weather patterns appeared to be militarized. How? He demanded. How is any of this possible? Tank's laugh rumbled through the comm system like an avalanche with a sense of humor. Son, we're the species that looked at every single thing that tried to kill us and said hold my beer. Predators? Parasites? Plagues? Weather? We turned them all into either pets, medicine, or weapons. Usually all three. Communications Officer Bleth was now hyperventilating into a paper bag that had somehow materialized on the bridge. Sir, they've weaponized their entire ecosystem. The trees are targeting us. The trees, sir. Trees can't target anything. Krax protested weakly. Tell that to the guided spore clouds currently eating through our hull armor. Bleth whimpered. Jake's voice carried the patient tone of someone explaining something to a particularly slow child. See, Commander, that's your problem. You think like prey. You look at a challenge and ask, how do we avoid this? We look at a challenge and ask, how do we make this our problem? Dr. Rodriguez chimed in helpfully. It's really quite fascinating from an evolutionary psychology standpoint. Your species developed intelligence as an escape mechanism. We developed intelligence as a weaponization mechanism. Completely different survival strategies. Tank's voice dropped to a conversational growl. Speaking of survival strategies, Bug Boy, you might want to check your rear scanners. Krax spun toward his tactical display, his four eyes widening in horror. Somehow, impossibly, human ships were appearing behind his fleet. Ships that looked suspiciously like improved versions of Vorthak technology. That's our own technology. He stammered. Was your technology? Jake corrected pleasantly. Our engineers took a look at your ships while you were posturing and figured they could make some improvements. Bobby Chen sends his thanks for the blueprints, by the way. He says your faster-than-light drive was charmingly inefficient. Just when Krax thought things couldn't get worse, his communications array received what appeared to be an official document. The header read, Galactic Invasion Permit Application Nice Status Pending. A new voice joined the conversation, crisp and terrifyingly bureaucratic. Commander Krax. This is Administrator Linda Kowalski from Earth's Department of Interplanetary Relations. I'm afraid I have some bad news about your invasion. Krax stared at his screen, watching a middle-aged woman in a business suit shuffle through what appeared to be an enormous stack of paperwork. Her smile was the kind that customer service representatives wore when they were about to ruin someone's entire day. You see, Linda continued, adjusting her reading glasses. According to Galactic Maritime Law Section 4.7. 3 subsection B, any species attempting to invade an inhabited world must first file the appropriate documentation with the local government. Since Earth recently joined the Galactic Council, Earth is not a member of the Galactic Council, Krax interrupted desperately. Actually, we submitted our application about 30 minutes ago. The Zephyrian ambassador was very helpful. Lovely fellow. He mentioned that the Vorthak had been giving him trouble with unlawful seizure of cargo vessels in the Proxima sector. Linda's smile grew sharper. Apparently that's a violation of Article 15.2 of the Interstellar Commerce Agreement. We filed a complaint on his behalf. Krax felt his exoskeleton beginning to crack under stress. You can't just, but we can. Linda chirped. You see, Commander, while your species was busy perfecting the art of intimidation, we were perfecting the art of making life miserable through proper channels. We've managed to get your entire fleet classified as an illegal armed gathering under the Peaceful Assembly Act. Communications Officer Bleth was now rocking back and forth in his chair, muttering something about forms and triplicate. Meanwhile, Linda was just getting started. Now about your invasion permit. I'm going to need proof of insurance, environmental impact assessments for each of your 400 ships, and a detailed plan for post-invasion infrastructure maintenance. Oh, and you'll need to submit to a mandatory psychological evaluation to ensure you're mentally fit for planetary governance. Dr. Rodriguez's voice joined the conversation, academic excitement mixing with barely contained glee. The psychological evaluation is particularly important, Commander. Our preliminary assessment suggests your species suffers from what we call chronic overcompensation syndrome. It's quite common among scavenger species who develop delusions of predatory grandeur. Tank's voice rumbled with approval. Doc's being polite. What she means is you're the galactic equivalent of a chihuahua with a megaphone. Krax tried to regain control of the situation. We don't need permits to conquer primitive worlds. We are the apex. Ah, about that, Linda interrupted, consulting another form. I've been reviewing your species' conquest history, and I'm afraid there's been a clerical error. According to our analysis, you've never actually conquered an apex predator. Your typical targets are agricultural societies, mining colonies, and species that communicate primarily through interpretive dance. Jake's voice carried a note of professional admiration. Linda, are you telling me these guys have been running a protection racket on the galaxy's equivalent of harmless farmers and street performers? That appears to be the case, Captain Morrison. Although I must say, their tax collection methods are impressively thorough. Brutal and illegal, but thorough. Krax watched his tactical display in growing horror as his fleet's status changed from invasion force to unlawful assembly, to public nuisance to violation of multiple galactic statutes. Somehow, the humans had managed to turn his entire military operation into a bureaucratic nightmare. Furthermore, Linda continued, her voice carrying the inexorable weight of proper procedure. Earth's Department of Environmental Protection has filed an injunction against your fleet's plasma exhaust, which apparently violates 17 different Clean Air Acts across 12 star systems. You're going to need to install emission controls before you can legally operate those ships anywhere in civilized space. Tank's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. Want to know the really funny part, Bug Boy? We've been broadcasting this entire conversation across the galactic communication network. Every species you've ever bullied is watching you get dressed down by a lady with a clipboard. Dr. Rodriguez added helpfully. From an anthropological perspective, this is fascinating. Your species appears to have built its entire identity around being feared, but you've never actually faced anyone who wasn't afraid of you. It's like discovering that the schoolyard bully only picks on kindergartners. Krax's worldview wasn't just cracking, it was undergoing complete structural failure. For 3,000 years the Vorthak had believed themselves to be the galaxy's apex predators. But these humans, these impossible, infuriating humans, weren't treating them like predators at all. They were treating them like paperwork. This is impossible, he whispered. We are feared across 400 star systems. We're feared, Jake corrected gently. Turns out fear is a lot like a magic trick, it only works until people figure out how it's done. And buddy, we've been dealing with bullies since we figured out how to walk upright. Linda's voice carried the final devastating blow. Oh, and Commander, your species' application for apex predator status has been denied. Insufficient documentation, fraudulent claims, and frankly, we've seen scarier things in our children's picture books. As if summoned by cosmic comedy, Tank's voice joined in with barely contained laughter. Lady's got a point, Bug Boy. My 5-year-old niece draws monsters scarier than you guys. Krax had reached his breaking point. The great Vorthak Empire, terror of the galaxy, had been reduced to the subject of intergalactic bureaucratic comedy. Time for a strategic withdrawal before things got even worse. All ships, he commanded, his voice cracking like a teenager asking someone to prom, prepare for emergency jump to hyperspace. We're leaving this cursed system. Sir? Navigation Officer Plox's voice carried the particular tone of someone about to deliver catastrophically bad news. We have a problem with the hyperspace jump. What kind of problem? Krax demanded, though he already knew he wasn't going to like the answer. The humans appear to have improved our navigation systems, without our permission. While we were talking, on the main screen, a new face appeared. A cheerful-looking man in coveralls with grease-stained fingers and the satisfied expression of someone who just solved a particularly interesting puzzle. Chief Engineer Bobby Chen waved at the camera like he was greeting an old friend. Hey there, Commander. Bobby Chen, Earth Engineering Corps. Hope you don't mind, but I took the liberty of upgrading your faster-than-light drive while you were getting schooled by Linda. Your original design was pretty inefficient, lots of wasted energy, terrible fuel consumption, and don't get me started on that radiation shielding. Amateur hour stuff, really. Krax stared at the human engineer, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence like a malfunctioning traffic light. You modified our ships. While we were in them? Oh yeah, totally. Wasn't hard. Your security systems are adorable. Like watching a toddler try to lock a door with a crayon. Bobby consulted what appeared to be a tablet covered in technical schematics. Anyway, I made some improvements. Your ships are now about 300% more efficient, they run cleaner, and I installed some safety features because honestly, your original design was a death trap. Safety features. Krax repeated weakly. Yeah, you know basic stuff. Automatic emergency protocols, enhanced life support, improved artificial gravity. Oh, and I took the liberty of installing our latest entertainment system. Figured you guys might want something to do during the long trip home. Communications Officer Bleth was frantically working his console, panic radiating from every chitinous pore. Sir, he's right about the modifications. Our systems are running at efficiency levels we've never seen. It's like these humans rebuilt our entire fleet from the inside out. Dr. Rodriguez's voice joined the conversation, carrying the tone of someone delivering a particularly fascinating lecture. It's really quite remarkable from a technological anthropology perspective. Your species achieved faster-than-light travel through brute force engineering, throwing massive amounts of energy at the problem until it worked. We prefer the elegant solution approach. Tank's voice rumbled with amusement. What the doc's trying to say is that you guys built your ships like cavemen building fire. Lots of banging rocks together until something catches. We build ours like civilized people who understand physics. Jake's voice carried a note of gentle mockery. The funny thing is, Bobby here has been treating this whole invasion as a fun engineering challenge. He's been taking notes on your technology like a kid with a new toy. Speaking of which, Bobby added cheerfully, I uploaded the complete technical specifications for your entire fleet to our planetary database. Our engineering schools are going to have a field day with this stuff. We're calling it How Not to Build a Spaceship, a comprehensive guide to inefficient design. Krax felt his worldview completing its transition from feared galactic conqueror to unwilling participant in a cosmic joke. You're going to teach our technology to your students. Well, we're going to teach them how to do it properly, Bobby corrected. Your designs are great examples of what happens when you prioritize looking scary over actually working well. Perfect teaching tools. Linda's voice returned to the conversation, carrying the inexorable weight of bureaucratic inevitability. Oh, Commander, I almost forgot. Your fleet's emissions violations have been forwarded to the Galactic Environmental Protection Agency. They're very interested in your plasma exhaust signatures. Apparently you've been violating clean space regulations for the past 3 millennia. Dr. Rodriguez added helpfully. The fines are quite substantial. According to our calculations, your species owes approximately 400 trillion galactic credits in accumulated environmental penalties. Tank's laughter rumbled through the comm system. 400 trillion credits. That's got to be some kind of record. Congratulations, Bug Boy. You've managed to rack up the biggest fine in galactic history. Krax tried one last desperate gambit. You cannot enforce galactic law on the Vorthak Empire. We answer to no one. Actually, Jake's voice carried the patient tone of someone explaining something to a particularly dense child. You answer to everyone now. See, while you were busy getting lectured by Linda, we've been busy joining pretty much every galactic organization that exists. Trade unions, environmental groups, cultural exchange programs, even the Galactic Knitting Circle. The what? Krax whispered. Lovely group. They make the most amazing sweaters. The point is, we're now full members of galactic society, which means we get to vote on things like trade sanctions, military restrictions, and species classification reviews. Bobby's voice joined in with barely contained glee. Oh, and we've submitted a formal request to have your species reclassified from apex predators to galactic nuisance. The preliminary vote is looking pretty favorable. Communications Officer Bleth had given up all pretense of military composure, and was now sobbing into his console. Sir, the humans have systematically dismantled our entire military, political and economic position in the galaxy. In less than 4 hours. Tank's voice carried a note of professional admiration. 4 hours. That's got to be some kind of record. Most species take us at least a week to completely demoralize. Dr. Rodriguez added with academic precision. To be fair, most species don't base their entire civilization on intimidating people who can't fight back. Your psychological vulnerability made this process considerably more efficient. Krax looked around his bridge, taking in the sight of his crew's complete psychological collapse, the tactical displays, showing his fleet's complete technological compromise, and the communication screens broadcasting his species' humiliation across the galaxy. What do you want? He asked finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Jake's voice carried a tone of genuine surprise. Want? We don't want anything, Commander. We're just here to help. Welcome to the neighborhood. 6 months later, former Commander Krax, now Senior Customer Service Representative Krax, sat in a ergonomically designed chair that was somehow more comfortable than his old command throne, staring at a holographic display that read Morrison Chen Galactic Solutions, turning problems into opportunities since last Tuesday. The irony wasn't lost on him. The species that had conquered 400 worlds through intimidation and fear had been conquered by aggressive customer service and unsolicited technological improvements. Krax to technical support. We have a level 3 complaint from the Zephyrian Trade Consortium, came the voice through his headset. It was Bleth, who had discovered that his naturally high-pitched voice was perfect for customer service work. Route it to the solutions department, Krax replied, his mandibles clicking in what had somehow evolved from a threatening gesture into a satisfied customer service smile. Tank's team loves dealing with trade disputes. The transformation had been remarkable. Sergeant Tommy Tank Williams had turned out to be a natural at conflict resolution, mostly because his approach to problem solving involved finding creative ways to make everyone equally uncomfortable until they agreed to compromise. Former enemies found his methods terrifyingly effective. Dr. Rodriguez's voice crackled through the office intercom system. Krax, we're getting some interesting data from the psychological adjustment program. It seems like your species is actually thriving in the customer service environment. The natural aggression translates perfectly to dealing with difficult customers. That was the thing about humans that Krax was still trying to understand. They didn't just defeat their enemies, they found ways to make their enemies happier and more productive in the process. It was psychological warfare of the most insidious kind. Daily Productivity Report, announced Bobby Chen's voice from the engineering department. The former Vorthak fleet is now operating at 400% efficiency compared to their original specifications. We've got requests from 17 different species wanting similar upgrades to their ships. Jake Morrison's voice joined the morning briefing, carrying the casual authority of someone who had accidentally conquered half the galaxy through superior customer service. Speaking of which, we've got 3 more species requesting to join the Morrison-Chen Galactic Solutions family. Apparently word is getting around that we offer excellent benefits and career advancement opportunities. Linda Kowalski's voice added the bureaucratic perspective. The paperwork for our expansion into the Andromeda sector has been approved. Turns out that when you actually file the proper forms and follow regulatory procedures, galactic expansion is surprisingly straightforward. Krax had to admit, the humans had turned galactic conquest into a corporate success story. Instead of ruling through fear, they ruled through efficiency, job satisfaction and comprehensive health insurance. It was diabolical in its effectiveness. His workstation chimed with an incoming call. The holographic display showed a familiar face, Admiral Zorthak of the Mantis Federation, another species that had once fancied themselves galactic apex predators. Krax Zorthak's voice carried a mixture of desperation and hope. We've heard about your transition. The humans, they've offered to help us restructure our military into what they call a logistics and supply chain management company. What should we do? Krax looked around the bustling office that had once been the bridge of his flagship. Former warriors were cheerfully resolving customer complaints, technical disputes, and interdimensional shipping problems. The Vorthak Empire's natural aggression had found its perfect outlet in dealing with bureaucratic incompetence and customer service nightmares. Take the deal, Krax advised. Trust me on this one. These humans, they don't just defeat you, they find a way to make you better at being you than you ever thought possible. Tank's voice rumbled from across the office floor. Plus the coffee's amazing, and we get dental coverage. Doctor, Rodriguez added from her research station. It's fascinating really. Human civilization appears to be based on the principle of aggressive optimization. They don't just solve problems, they turn problems into career opportunities. Bobby Chen's cheerful voice joined the conversation. Oh, and Zorthak, if you decide to join up, I'd love to take a look at your ship designs. I bet we could improve your fuel efficiency by at least 200%. Jake's voice carried the final word, the tone of someone who had discovered that the best way to rule the galaxy was to make everyone genuinely glad to be part of it. The thing is, Admiral, we're not really in the conquest business, we're in the improvement business. We make things better, whether they want to be improved or not. Krax ended the call and returned to his customer service queue. Somewhere in the back of his mind, the former terror of 400 star systems wondered if this was what the humans had planned all along. Had they known that the most effective way to conquer a galaxy wasn't through superior firepower, but through superior customer service and a genuine desire to help. The thought was interrupted by his next call, a mining colony with a shipping dispute that needed the kind of aggressive problem-solving that only a reformed galactic conqueror could provide. As Krax dove into the complexities of interstellar logistics, he realized that the humans had accomplished something unprecedented in galactic history. They had turned their enemies into enthusiastic employees, their conflicts into career opportunities, and their conquest into a customer satisfaction success story. And the most terrifying part, everyone involved was genuinely happier for it. The humans hadn't just become the galaxy's new apex predators. They had made the concept of predation obsolete by turning it into customer service. Morrison-Chen Galactic Solutions. Krax answered his next call, his voice carrying the professional cheerfulness of someone who had found his true calling. How can we make your day better? In the background, he could hear Jake Morrison's voice addressing the morning staff meeting. Remember team, we're not just solving problems, we're turning every problem into an opportunity to exceed expectations. Because that's what apex predators do. We don't just survive, we help everyone else thrive too. And somehow, impossibly, Krax found himself genuinely excited about the day ahead.